Welcome to the Distillers Institute Podcast. I'm your host, Marcel Thompson. I'll speak with experienced distillery owners who have launched and have grown their own distilling businesses. And we'll share some of their wins, their successes, their challenges, and find out just what it takes to make a great distilling business. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Kyle Skene. Kyle is the founder of Strange Nature. Absolutely spectacular story, a wonderful distillery. I encourage you, even now, check out his website, which is strangenaturegin.com. Check it out. Spectacular colours. It's all very inviting. And it is a truly remarkable story to be told. So, Kyle, thanks for joining me today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Marcel. Thanks for the generous introduction. Yeah, no, it's a great story, but one I'm keen to share today with you. And we've had a couple of interactions over a couple of gin festivals historically, so it's good to stitch together some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate your time today, Kyle. I was just trying to think back when we first met. I'm pretty sure, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was at a gin event at the Cloud in Auckland in 2023. It's remarkable how much time has actually passed by. And I suppose one of the greatest impressions I had when we first met was, first of all, first thing that struck me is how engaging we were when we first met. So that's absolutely wonderful. And I think that's a testament, to the energy and the love that you have for the product, but also your interaction with people. And I thoroughly enjoyed that interaction we had. But the product, which is in the background, they're absolutely spectacular. If ever there's something that draws in your attention, it really is the way you've gone about presenting your product and the story that goes with it. So can you tell me a little bit about the idea behind Strange Nature Gin and indeed the Strange Nature Distilling business itself and how that actually came about?
I'll take you back even further from the first time I tasted the product that sort of generated the end product. But having spent 10 years in the spirits industry with a company called Maxim New Zealand, which was a joint venture between Jim Beam, Absolute Vodka, Famous Grouse, or the Edgerton Group, and Remy Cointreau. About a decade dealing with some of the global sort of spirit brands in little old New Zealand gave us a great background. And then having ventured into the wine industry with Gießen, there came this sort of epiphany or this moment in time where in the pursuit of one thing, we ended up with another and another. But we were actually making non-alcohol Sauvignon Blanc. And it was in that pursuit that I'd said to our winemaking team, hey, can you send me the byproduct? Can you find me some bottles of the ethanol? And it was in March of 2020 at our dining table as we were heading into a little period of COVID where I had some samples arrive down of Sauvignon Blanc ethanol. And upon the first taste, there was just this moment. It's a little bit of what I call an oh shit moment, excuse my language, but it was one of those, wow, this is amazing. And it was just a pure Sauvignon Blanc spirit at about 45% ABV. It was the most beautiful, aromatic, flavoursome byproduct that I'd ever come across. And it was at that point in time that I rang one of the Gießen brothers, Alex Gießen, and said to him, hey, we've spent 40 years being winemakers. We've now just crossed into this beautiful industry called distilling and the spirits industry. And he said to me, what do you mean? I said, we're gently distilling Sauvignon Blanc to make non-alcohol wine. And then in the process, we're taking ethanol out. And it was at that point in time that everything started to fall into place, Marcel. And it was a moment of tasting and getting those senses of aroma and taste profile that, having had a background in spirits, I knew this was really unique. And it was just that part that then got us into the process of starting to develop something. And it was a really, really interesting experience because I then linked on a network to talk to people about gin distilling or vodka. And it was interesting. One guy said to me out of the US, he said, look, Kyle, there's no RFPs for Sauvignon Blanc spirit. So he said, your idea of a gin or your idea of a vodka is absolutely where you need to head. So it was at that point we started to look at where it would be best suited, which was definitely in the gin category.
That is absolutely remarkable, particularly, and for those who aren't familiar with the region, it's very much wine country. And as you pointed out, it's 40 years of heritage and leadership that's actually taken place in there. So in a lot of ways, for the wine industry to even take that leap into something that's like wine with no alcohol in it. And then someone actually having enough vision to realize that's great. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
And just to send it here, I'll do something. It actually reminds me very much of one of my mentors in the United States, a gentleman by the name of Tom Anderson. And long story short, he came across a group that were removing the kernels from corn so that they could use the actual body of the corn in there to make pipes. And so he asked a really simple question: what do you do with the corn? Fast forward, he's now making whiskey with that stuff. So it is absolutely remarkable what people can actually do with a little bit of foresight. I think there's a thing. And I suppose the other key takeaway from that, from what you shared, is the fact that you sought help from other people to actually sort of get an idea around that. And really, I guess, to stress test what seems like an interesting idea, seems like a great idea. And then obviously there was enough confidence then to actually pursue that. So what was the next steps? Obviously, things have moved to where you are now, but was it a case of, yeah, you've had your oh shit moment and you gathered some help? What happened next?
Yeah, it was a really interesting sort of process because we looked at the category of gin and said, okay, we've got this lovely ethanol base, really different from our counterparts in the industry or our competitors in the industry. So we've got something unique. And it was at that point that we probably went down a little bit of a rabbit hole that a lot of gin distillers do, is how many botanicals can we put in this ethanol that gives us a point of difference? And I've made that comment, oh, we should just do juniper. But it took us about 9 months to come back to that, because we tried every botanical that you could source locally or globally. And clearly juniper was one of the key components to be in the gin category, let alone that sort of piney character and how that balanced with the beautiful tropical aromatics and that sort of green, grassy, lemony, citrusy aspect that Sauvignon Blanc gives. But we found that we were creating all these botanicals that clashed with the natural botanicals. What we hadn't quite grasped at the early days is that we were growing natural botanical. It was already infused in the ethanol because it had come from the soil, from the vine, from the grape, and then consequently from the winemaking process. And then as we gently distilled it out with the spinning cone, we were left with natural botanical. And it was already infused in the ethanol. And as I say, it took us about 9 months to come back to actually juniper's probably the one botanical that matches up and marries to these natural botanicals the best. It was then about getting the balance of juniper to our ethanol. And that took us probably a good sort of 3-4 months to get that level of juniper compound correct. And look, as I said earlier, we partnered with people. So we've had some exceptional help from the team at Spirits Workshop, because ultimately they do the second distillation for us. So we do the first distillation, which is taking it, extracting it from the wine under spinning cone technology. And then we do the second distillation with the juniper within at the Spirits Workshop with their pot still. It's a really interesting new technology, and lots of history and older technology comes together to make Strange Nature. It did take time, but what that time gave us, Marcel, was the opportunity to sit back and look at taking something really unique to the global spirits industry, because no one makes gin this way anywhere in the world. No one makes wine to then gently distill the ethanol out to make a non-alcohol wine and then has a byproduct that's so beautiful. So we knew we were on something unique, and what we couldn't do, and this was a pet project of mine, is we couldn't just go and take a bottle off the shelf from OI or Vizzy in Auckland or somewhere else. We needed to have something really bespoke, because I suppose my decade in the spirits industry showed me that if you can get people's attention at the point of purchase, then you're a long way down the path of being successful. I always look at the spirits industry and talk about the fact that it is a fashion industry. Categories have been there forever, but they come and go with generational cycles. You know, what granddad drank, dad doesn't drink, and the grandson thinks what dad drank wasn't that cool, but what granddad drank was pretty awesome. So we always know that if you can make it timeless, it'll last generations. So that was the goal with Strange Nature, was to make sure that we created a package that was unique to us, really bespoke. So we went down about a 12, 18-month development of brand and brand message, but also in terms of packaging, we needed to make sure we were really unique in category. So the bottle is our own bottle design, where we partnered with some friends in Christchurch called Plato Design. a young gentleman by the name of Tim O'Neill, who actually coincidentally now works with Keeson internally as our creative lead. So Tim and I work really closely together on Strange Nature. We now work really closely together on Geeson as well. And then we partnered with an Auckland company, Stefan and David at Chandler Glass, because we needed experts in their field to help us create this world-class product. They then managed the whole glass production, procurement, closure. The shield or the crest on the front is aluminium. So we really talked about how we wanted the bottle to be able to last past the point of product consumption, that people would then be able to keep it in their lives, in their house or on the shelf with a flower in it, or wanting to reuse the bottle. Because we always said it's okay to buy it because it's beautiful, but we want people to keep that bottle in their lives somehow. Yeah, really interesting learning from our end was, how do we make this product timeless? Because we've got such a unique production and taste profile, but now how do we make it timeless that it can go generations and be a product from New Zealand that will last? So
you've probably nailed all of that in spades, and I think it's also a testament to the amount of quality thinking and the engagement of other people to provide that input to come up with what is arguably one of the most spectacular bottle packages that you could find. And I understand a bit of an accolade as well for the packaging design at one point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was wonderful to get. I think the fact that our product's so unique, we won design and innovation awards before we won actually quality awards, because I think it's a matter of people tasting and understanding the process and what makes it so unique. But no, we were really lucky to pick up innovation and design awards really quickly, which made us feel wonderful, and the hard work and the time spent. But it was when we started picking up trophies and gold medals for the product as well that it all came together for us. And I think, Marcel, what really started to work well for us is when we launched in November of 2021 domestically, all of a sudden we just got this fan base, or these consumers who became so enamored with the bottle, drinking it, saying we think the bottle's too small because we drink it so quickly, but also how do we get the bottle back to you to be reused? So that then drove an initiative of recycling bottles and all that sort of stuff as well, which has been really cool. But no, the brand positioning was so important for us, Marcel. That was probably one thing. My background is not as a distiller. My background is in the sales and marketing and manufacturing of ultimately adult beverages. But as I left Coca-Cola, I then moved into the liquor industry. So I've stayed there. Inadvertently, I've come back to non-alcohol beverages with non-alcohol wine, but in between that, there's also some wonderful alcoholic beverages as well. And I think that was one thing with Strange Nature. We knew we had this one chance to get it right, because what we were going to be taking to the world was this product that comes from New Zealand's wine industry, which is an exceptional industry in itself. Globally, where Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is seen as the most premium Sauvignon, the most aromatic, the most probably sort of innovative industry, because we're not old world, we're not tied to history. So we've been seen as this very innovative young industry, to your point, 40 to 50 years old, out there selling 1% of the global wine production, but achieving a 3 to 3.5% value. So we're a really premium industry. And what we needed to do as Strange Nature was to add to that. And our view was, how do we increase a litre of Sauvignon Blanc's value to New Zealand exports? So a little fun fact, at the moment, the New Zealand wine industry gets about $8 a litre for New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc as it exports it to the world. We're achieving about $54 a litre with Strange Nature.
Wow.
And that shows you that a byproduct can value add an industry. To your point, the corn kernels, who would have thought? So we knew we had a responsibility of taking this product to the world in a really premium positioning. And that was what drove us to be very particular about package, story, and also who we partner with.
That is remarkable. I was just sitting here in thrall, just listening to the anecdotes that you've shared and the journey that you've taken. And that statistic, $8 for wine, what's that? A 7-fold increase in value as a consequence of this innovation here that's a stellar result by any measure. Okay, who you are, tariffs or not, that's a stellar result.
And more recently, Marcel, we've just taken a new product the Strange Nature Pinot Noir gin, which is Pinot Noir grapes and juice that are steeped with the Sauvignon Blanc ethanol and juniper and distilled. And we've just achieved about a $72 a litre. Granted, it's only about 2,000 bottles, but it's 2,000 bottles selling at about $150 a bottle.
And might I say, I'm quite able to plug this. Might I say, I was very fortunate to pick up a bottle of this magnificent elixir. I reckon it's an elixir. I just find it absolutely spectacular, and it's consistent with the ethos that you've described. It is delicious. It is absolutely delicious. Yeah, it's only available on limited release in my house. So people,
around.
You can have that. You can have that. That's it. That's all we have. Yeah. But yeah, it's absolutely spectacular. So congratulations, another terrific product in your stable of great tasting adult beverages. That's for certain. When you speak numbers that are just in terms of value add and the like, it does pose a question. Well, what in terms of the manufacturing side? How big is this thing? Because the impression I get is that it's most definitely punching well above its weight, which suggests to me that it doesn't really have to be particularly large. So in terms of the scale of it, maybe in terms of bottles or litres, your team, sales growth, can you tell us a little bit about that you're okay to share as far as the business is concerned?
Oh, look, we'll be pretty upfront. We're not, this is not rocket science for us. It's an amazing little venture. And we've decided to try and keep it really lean, Marcel. We've decided that we want to partner with people as we build this in our local economy. So hence the Spirits Workshop guys are working with us. We've got our own distilling through the Spinning Cone with our own team through Gießen. And then we bottle and manufacture in Marlborough. So we've got a really small team. We contract process with obviously the guys at Spirits Workshop. We have a resource sitting in Marlborough at our winery that we have a shared services agreement with for ultimately bottling the product and packaging. And then we have a small, very small team of a couple of people who actually run Strange Nature. So 2 years ago, we could see that the potential of this product was starting to move. And I picked up the phone to a young gentleman by the name of Reece Julian, who I know you've met at another gin festival.
Absolutely.
And Reece had actually worked with me at Coca-Cola, and then he'd worked with me at Maxim and with Jim Beam, and then he had worked with me at Gießen for 7 years. He jumped out to go and get some experience in the dairy industry from New Zealand, another great export. And I asked him if he wanted to come back into the spirits industry. So Reece came back a couple of years ago. And then we've just got a really small team that assist on the sales, production, and marketing. Would you believe it? It's a team of 2.
Wow.
That's it. Everything else we partner with people, because it is about creating a global brand. Our background is in sales and marketing and route to market and distribution. So we need to be partnering with people who are experts in their field further down the track in the manufacturing side of things. So small, lean team. We're heading towards about 70,000 bottles a year, which is generating around $2 to $2.5 million of revenue for us. We're small, but certainly achieving some really good things in some really nice segments of the market. And I think that's probably the key learning for us, Marcel, is we're not big enough to go and compete globally in every segment of the market. So whether it be liquor retail, on-premise, or duty-free, we needed to decide very early on what markets we wanted to go to, what markets we wanted to support, but within that, what segments of the market were we going to compete in and prove our positioning. So the real focus has been achieving really nice business domestically in the New Zealand market, which has been just an absolute pleasure to do with our team out there selling. We've more recently moved into the federal merchants portfolio, who are doing an exceptional job. And then into Australia, where we have really good knowledge and relationship. We've been lucky enough to launch up into the US, and we've got a really great listing there with Total Wine & More, because again, being a wine business, they understood the process of how we were getting to make the product. So they're excited about listing. So we're in a number of states there. And then we've got really nice distribution in small markets around the world as well that tick along really well. But where we're also performing really strongly, like we are in the domestic market, is in duty-free. So duty-free through New Zealand, duty-free at all the airports in Australia. We've just been lucky enough to get into Changi in Singapore, New Delhi in India, and Qatar. So we've got this really lovely sort of distribution network up through Southeast Asia and into the Middle East now. And that's growing really quickly, again, with partnerships with people who know that segment of the market. So we're partnering with subject matter experts in duty-free, getting amazing growth. The product gets on the shelf. We spend a lot of time making sure it's presented in the way we need it to be presented, that it tells the story. We do a lot of tasting because that's where one of the unique aspects of our product is in the taste profile. And then we let the bottle do the rest, Marcel. It gets it sold for us. And then what we find is when consumers buy, they become really sticky to the brand. Their engagement level back through the website's really strong. Their innovative ways that they utilize our bottle is amazing, from lamps to chandeliers to just vases. It's been quite amazing watching people get really innovative with the bottle as well. Yeah, but I think the key learning was we needed to get really tight on where we were going to sell and how, because we don't have big budgets. So we needed to be really, really clear on what success looked like before we launched.
A couple of other questions. I guess the fact that you're getting the feedback around what people are doing with the bottles is really a testimony to the level of investment that people have in the brand and the whole reusable ethos as well. And that's to be commended. It's actually encourage people through your packaging. And ultimately, I was listening to what you were saying. To me, you've done all these things, and you can almost sum it up by saying, and then we let the bottle do the talking. Because the bottle speaks to so many different people in so many different ways, even after the product has been consumed. And that's a remarkable achievement. Absolutely. Really excited about, obviously, the plans that you've got. And in terms of this nice little route you've got through Southeast Asia, what that suggests then is that at some point, there'll probably be some kind of tipping point in there where you think, what is the next step and how do we scale, and is there the capacity to scale to the levels we want? Or maybe it's the questions posed differently. We can scale to this point, and once we get to that point, that's kind of it. Have you considered what the next steps are beyond in terms of scale, particularly with the focus on export markets? And I was particularly interested in the fact that you've got your product in the United States, which is a notoriously tough nut to crack. Any thoughts you can share around the next steps around scale, and maybe a few tips about how one has a crack at trying to get into a state in the United States?
Yeah. So in terms of scale, we're lucky because, as we're all seeing in the spirits in the alcohol industry, that there is I'd call it a moderation moment that's starting to occur. We're having tremendous. So I sit in the Geeson business running that for the Geeson family, and then I sit as a shareholder with two of the Geeson brothers and some other people in Strange Nature. And I get to see both sides, where the wine industry is heading and where the spirits industry is. But in the middle of this, we're seeing this moderation moment occur where people's consumption is being more regulated by themselves. And therefore, what we're seeing on the Geeson side is non-alcohol wine is flying, absolutely growing for us. So it's the one part. Alcohol wine is quite tough. Is a global sort of glut within that side. New Zealand wine is performing exceptionally well within that because, again, as I said earlier, we're 1% of global production, but we're 3.5% of value. So we're an aspirational category within wine. So we'll always have really nice growth within that. And on the side of that, the Geeson business has got non-alcohol wine, which is flying. We're now number 2 brand in the US, growing twice as fast as category, and a premium of about $5 a bottle to the category. So we've got this really unique position on the non-alcohol de-alkalized wine side, which means that there's actually a lot of byproduct for us at Strange Nature to utilize. So in terms of being able to scale, we don't see any issues with that. For us, it's a manufacturing process that we'll just need to be able to keep up with more sales, which will mean automation on the bottling line. So some investment of the bottling line will probably need to come at some point. The other part, Marcel, I look at is if we're achieving $54 a litre versus an industry of wine only achieving $8, then we'll be able to go and buy as much wine as we want to de-alkalize to make more spirits. So the scalability of Strange Nature is almost, I would classify as endless. that's a really exciting. You're probably picking. I'm ever the optimist. I always look at things that it's never negative. There's always a massive positive, and I think within that there's a huge opportunity for us to value add a number of industries, both wine and spirits, and that puts a lot of pressure on us to perform, and I quite like that as well. And then, in terms of market execution, the one mantra I have with our business is let's look at a niche within a niche within a niche. So let's not go, we're going to go wide and we're going to try and conquer America, because what you've got to remember there is it's a 3-tier alcohol system.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
you need to be able to navigate a master importation business, state distribution, and then know who your customers are that are going to ultimately sell your product to the consumer. Unless you're willing to go direct to consumer in limited states and invest there, you actually need to really understand that 3-tier system. And one of the best ways to do that is to look at almost second-tier states, not Texas, California, New York, New Jersey, Florida, but look at launching in the likes of Colorado or Illinois, looking at markets where there isn't as much noise or there isn't as much focus from the big brands, and then getting in really tight with a master importer who gets your story, and then working with either retail or on-premise who also understand the nature that, or the nature of your journey, which is about premiumization. That's our story, is about premiumizing the category. We're not chasing volume. We're all about value, experience, occasion, and how we make sure that when consumers are in the gin category, they stay there and they've got lots of options of being able to tell stories to their friends about the bottle, about the making the gin, about the origin, or just even, how it tastes different to other gins. I think work with people going into the US who know the market. Don't be afraid to ask lots of questions and start small, because the market, once it does gather momentum, can move. But it's about how you get momentum first. And if you can't get that, you'll waste a lot of money. So even if it's just small momentum with little wins at on-premise through one state with one importer, and it might only be 5 people are selling your gin, but that's 5 people who are really passionate about it, talking to 10 people every day, who are then talking to another 10 people every day. It's about how do you, probably the best analogy I use is you've got to create those Pied Piper moments where you've got one person leading others and they'll follow. So yeah, the US is such a big market and a huge opportunity. You get lost very quickly, and it's an exceptionally expensive market to operate in. And as we see with the way our dollar is versus the American dollar at the moment,
yes.
It's really expensive. Work really tight, niche within a niche, and start there. And that's certainly how we started in the US. Granted, we got an opportunity to get distribution from one of the largest state distributors, being RNDC, but
Cool.
we then partnered
Excellent.
with Total Wine and More at a retail level to work with them.
I think to me, niche within a niche, it's a testimony to really clear laser focus. So it's a specific thing, a specific target, and all your energy is going into that. You're right. If you go broader than that, then you put all sorts of other elements at risk, including just being able to maintain things and scale and the like. But if you're really clear about what that looks like. And I think the other great takeaway there as well is to think small and take the wins as you get them. You mentioned a group of 5, right? That's 5 more than you had before they became part of your followers, right? And that's how it all works. It's really nurturing those relationships, I think. And I got lots of things are going to unfold, I'm sure, over the coming years. And it's an exciting time, both for your own business, but in a small way, maybe New Zealand might get a bit of a nudge in there too, if they can remember to put us on a Google map in the future. But but that's the sort of thing that we like to do.
Have you ever thought of starting your own craft distillery? At the Distillers Institute, we've got an online course packed with advice from the founders of the Distillers Institute for people wanting to reduce risk, save time and cost in opening a distillery. Go to thedistillersinstitute.com.
Here's a question, and it's very much a focus on where you are, where you were, where you are, and where you want to go. And that is, what do you love most about growing your business? What's the thing that you really love the most about this journey?
It's an interesting question because it's all been about evolution. I think what we really loved was creating the story and creating the brand standard and the brand story and the brand message and then the packaging. So it's been all about that sort of evolution. what we really loved was that creation. But then we started to really love the challenge of taking it global. What New Zealand proved to us that it was that we had an amazing product. So our local market proved to us, gave us the confidence to go globally and really look to get investment. And I think what we really love now is just, almost a coalition of the willing, bringing in more and more people who just believe in the story. So the more people we talk to, the more they go, wow, that's an amazing story. It gives you more confidence to keep going. And I think what we love now is we are doing something, we think it's really unique, and taking that out to the world, but being able to lean on the fact that it is from New Zealand. New Zealand has an amazing reputation in food and beverage. And what we have to do as Strange Nature is add to that. And we think we believe we are. And I think that's the part we really love, is it's helping multiple industries. New Zealand Inc. is without doubt the thing we're really investing in. New Zealand wine, New Zealand spirits, New Zealand gin, New Zealand innovation, that entrepreneurial spirit, all those things that we're known for globally are all coming together within this product. I think that the fact that we lean on wine and spirits is really cool.
It's remarkable. Absolutely.
And we just open up a massive audience by doing that. So us being able to lean on wine means that more people get to see New Zealand spirits. And then as we go into the spirits industry, it also means that we can introduce people from the spirits industry to New Zealand wine.
New Zealand wine, yeah.
And you see that moment in time when you're explaining that to retail buyers around the world, when they go, wow, okay, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc is one of our largest categories. So we could actually do an EDM, a mail out, to introduce to them that there's a gin made from their favourite varietal, being Sauvignon Blanc. And you can see the penny drop where they go, wow, we can actually open up 20,000 more consumers. And that instantly brings them into the New Zealand spirits industry, where we've never possibly had them before, because they might be drinking other spirits from around the world. And that then allows the New Zealand spirits industry to have a voice, and a stronger voice as well. So we feel that we're just a part of multiple stories adding value. I think that's the part that we're really excited about, is that we're good for both industries. We're not competitive. We bring together and marry up two amazing industries. And it's a little bit like the original story. We bring this amazing Sauvignon Blanc ethanol and we marry it up with this beautiful juniper berry. And it's the same with wine and spirits. We bring them together and make them stronger. And look, I'm not saying they need to be stronger, but there's no reason why we can't have an amazing story that New Zealand can own for some period of time. So
absolutely, it's what you've described really is the embodiment of stronger together. It really is.
Yep.
I think the fact that there is the synergy between the two industries, they share a common base, for want of a better term, and certainly a common theme. And it is something quintessentially New Zealand in many ways. And I think my view is that the initiative that Strange Nature are taking is in many ways trailblazing, and in a whole lot of different ways. Because as you pointed out, it's more complementary type partnership, which again is consistent with the way in which you've gone about your businesses around going to experts in the field and bringing together people in partnerships. It just happens that the way it's come about, though, is a remarkable thing. As someone just twigged onto an idea, your oh shit moment, as it were. But just the fact that the ingredients were there and to see the result of that is really quite something.
Yeah.
I think too, just as an aside from a gin maker's viewpoint, I think the wonderful thing about the spirit, is me just geeking out again, with spirits often, particularly with gin, we often speak about the neutral spirit as being like your canvas, and the botanicals are the colours on your palette, right? On your colour palette. And so when you've got, in traditional London dry gin styles, for example, you need a really highly rectified neutral spirit so that the botanicals can tell the story and paint the picture. What you've got with your Sauvignon Blanc-based spirit is you've got a wonderful palette already, which then has obviously juniper, which is complementary across the way it interacts with all of those existing elements within your canvas. And the fact you had to spend the time and effort to actually balance that out, I think, is testimony to recognizing what is really a genuine advantage, and how best to bring out the best parts of those elements and the flavour and the depth of that flavour together. And certainly I'm a fan. I took some bottles with me. Actually, when we first met, yeah, that's right. I do some teaching in Kentucky on a fairly regular basis around gin, and I took some bottles across. And people were going, what is that? That is amazing. And I sort of told the story as best I could. Obviously not as well as you can. But people were just staggered, first of all, by the bottle. So obviously the bottle did the talking. And it didn't last long. I think barely saw 10 minutes. So now that means one of two things. Either people really love the stuff or they're big drinkers or both. That's it. What do you mean you only brought one bottle with you? You know what we're like. So anyway, so regularly I actually take your Strange Nature with me. So you got lots of fans in Kentucky. There's probably more than the 5 that you spoke about now. You got a few more.
Yeah, building every day, which is the key.
Yeah, no, exactly right. What do you think has been, obviously you spoke, it's true what you shared with me, obviously very optimistic about things, but what do you think's been the greatest challenge you've had around putting the concept and building, not only just the production side of things, but just the Strange Nature gin business itself? What do you think's been the biggest challenge to date?
Yeah, it's probably where we are now is probably the biggest challenge, because we're growing, we see a huge amount of opportunity. Probably the biggest challenge is staying focused, because there are so many opportunities. And I come back again to what we were just talking about before, but that is probably the challenge, is going, right, we've identified the strategy and there's lots of people coming in with different ideas and lots of opportunity. Hey, we want to import you to here, but we need this and that. And hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do a vodka? Why don't you maybe look at something else? And we've been really determined to stay focused around that route to market strategy and the portfolio. So that's probably the challenge, just continuing to, with as much noise and opportunity that's there, is staying focused. But also we're now at the point probably where funding is the challenge as well, Marcel. Reinvesting back into the business is the core mantra from across the shareholder group, and growing in the right places. So again, with every dollar we've got, we need to be really clear where we want to spend it, versus hearing lots of great things outside of our strategy is going, no, resist the urge, only spend here. So yeah, I think that you can get very excited very quickly, and it's having people pull you back and go, no, guys, remember the strategy. And we're really lucky. We've brought in some amazing shareholders just recently, Marcel. We were really particular about expanding the shareholder base, bringing in the right people. So we've got a wonderful gentleman called Roland Van Bommel who's joined us as a small shareholder. But Roland ran William Grant & Son as global CEO. Maxim is the global CEO, is now on a number of directorships and chair roles. So he has phenomenal route to market and spirits experience in his background. So he makes sure we stay really focused. So it's just surrounding yourself with the right people and the right subject matter experts who can keep you aligned to the goal. And that's probably one thing, making sure you have a goal. Yeah. What's plan A, what's plan B, and then working towards it. So again, I think it's just, we don't know everything. We know that. We wake up every day and learn something new, and you've got to have good people around you to do that.
Yeah, one of the interesting tools one of my mentors actually shared with me is, and it's amazing how often this he came up with 2 things. One of them was a no list. So what the hell is a no list? He said, other things that you automatically say no to. And you say no, not because you don't want to, you say no because you don't do that.
Yeah.
And he said, it takes courage to come up with a no list. And I thought, yeah. But he's right. Yeah. There's all sorts of distractions. Shiny old squirrel. There's all sorts of things you can go there. But to your point about staying true to the strategy, by definition, that kind of creates a no list of some description. And what I found was really useful with that was the fact that because you've already thought about it and you've already made a decision, the choice becomes really simple because you've already made the decision about how to deal with something that pops up like that. So that was really helpful. The other thing he came up with, which I've shared with other people, in particular, Ali Ayres has just recently won a global award in the spirits industry with IWSC. And she said, one of the greatest pieces of advice you gave me, I thought, gee, what was that? It was really simple, and it helps with distraction. It was stop starting, start finishing. But yeah, and I've found that can be quite a good couple of things, just keeping them buried, particularly when things do get exciting and people have great ideas, and it can be difficult to stay the course, which is why, as you pointed out, having some good people around you is, it's time to rein them in now. Come back, hook them in, bring them back in again. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I get that. In terms of shareholding, so is this a recent sort of development of getting people in, or did you always have an idea of having investment up front? Or was this more of a recent development?
We were really lucky to start where we started, is a business with an idea. And I had amazing guys and the three Geeson brothers, Theo, Alex and Marcel Geeson, who said, hey, look, we're wine guys, your spirits, go for it. And at that point, man, did I go for it, brand and story and design. But they were amazing in the early days to just go, look, the opportunities are endless. We believe you. The vision's there. Let's enable it. And then as we went bringing Reece into the business, we needed to make sure he wanted to come in and bring his sales and marketing expertise, his global route to market knowledge. So we got Reece in and we gave him some skin in the game, which was a wonderful opportunity for both parties. And then more recently, as we've needed to just grow a little bit, we decided that we would open up the shareholding a little bit to some people who were going to be able to help us with our longer term plans. Really smart investors, locally based, along with a studying master of wine, Duncan Schuller, who's been there from day one, de-alkalizing wine, but also an amazing palate as part of our distilling process with what we do with all of our MPD, but also our original gin. And then obviously someone like Roland, who is local with the knowledge that he had, was just a logical opportunity for us to ask him to come in as well. And it's more for the knowledge base and the longer term strategy than funding. So it was more about who do we put around the table versus how much do they bring to the table. It's more their IP, their willingness, their desire, and believing in the story as well. Finding money's easy, but that was not our goal. It was finding the right people to sit around the table who could long-term add a huge amount of value with their knowledge. So we've been really lucky. It's a really small group, Marcel. There's sort of 6 of us. That's it. So that's all. Makes the meetings really quick. So that's always an advantage. But I think that's our focus, is staying small, building big. And I think that's the part around our duty-free strategy that Reece has executed is just second to none right now. We're competing with global brands from the get-go and doing really well, and not at a value proposition. It's not volume-wise. We're very much premium value. Everything we want to do is add value to the category. We're not in the gin category to cut other people's lunch. We're here to grow the category. If we can bring wine drinkers into gin, that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
As wine producers, we know that our Sauvignon Blanc drinkers drink white spirits. So if we can cross-pollinate them within the 2 categories, that's a really great opportunity for everybody. Our goal is about growth and at a holistic level for category, for us, for New Zealand. That's what really drives us.
Yeah, and I think just harking back to the selection of your investors, because I guess my takeaway from that is that you really it sounds as though you're after people who could bring more to the table than just money, right?
Absolutely.
People, you could bring some additional IP, expertise, guidance, mentorship, whatever the case may be in terms of describing that. And I think that's key. I think probably the other snippet I garnered from that is a degree of patience with money as well, right? So the guys you've got on the table obviously realize that it's not just about the money. There's a long-term strategic approach that we need to take. And I guess on reflection, that probably made selection quite straightforward in the end. You say, we want people to do the following. And if they don't, thank you. But so that probably makes that selection really simple, because you're really clear about what complementary skills can help you achieve the goals that you've set, and you've got some very clear goals as well. So that's excellent.
Without a doubt, Marcel, that was the key. It was about actually approaching people and asking them they liked what they saw and they wanted to be involved. And it was a chorus of yes, absolutely, we're in. And I think long term, if we're going to scale globally, we're going to need to bring in strategic partnership and or investment. And I think the first round of who you bring in is really important, that attracts the right amount of investment. Because for us, I look at it with my vision as it's not about a volume of people being involved. It's about the right people being involved. And then that will mean that we get the right partner in the next stage. And we're not having to bring in 100 people, we bring in 1. Because they look at the small group and go, yep, we know where they're heading. It's very clear. There's nothing too noisy going on. I think we've been really clear about that strategy as well. If we are going to globally scale, we know that it's not just going to come from our cash flow that we're generating. It's going to have to, at some stages, have some really chunky investment or strategic partnership. And that's where having less people at the table, with more focus means you're able to find the right partner in that second phase.
That's terrific. Absolutely. Heading towards time, but seriously, I could speak to you all day. I don't know if you could listen to me all day, but I could certainly speak to you all day.
You probably picked up I can speak all day about this as well.
Oh, and I would just sit back and just listen. I'll tell you, absolutely. It's been a wonderful journey. You've taken us from concept, the whole idea, the oh shit moment, the expansion into the US, the next stages, some of the challenges that you've had. If there was one piece of advice you would give to someone who's just starting out, right? And what would that be?
And we've touched on this a number of times in the last hour already. It's probably going to be no surprise to anyone who's hung in there and listened to my dulcet tones. But it's spend time up front getting really clear about what your brand stands for. Because there are so many people who can make amazing products. Marcel, we have a phenomenal amount of amazing distillers out there in New Zealand making great products. I think if anyone coming in is get really focused about what your product stands for, and then get really focused about where your route to market. Where are you going to be successful? Is it in retail? Is it in on-premise? Is it duty-free? Is it direct-to-consumer? If you know what your product stands for, that will become really logical. That next step of segmentation by market becomes really logical. And then it's be patient, work in markets for time. We have a saying that I gathered from Theo Giesen back in the early days, he or she who walks the street gets the order. So don't be afraid to wear out some shoe leather, get out there and do the sales calls, because you'll learn really early what segment your product works in. And I spent nearly 2 weeks in Melbourne calling all the Dad Murphy stores in the early days, learning about our story for retail. And by the time I'd spent that sort of week and a half, nearly 2 weeks in January in Melbourne, there was a really good cadence of story. We had multiple people buying it at store level. And then we saw our sales subsequently after that really go to a new level. And I think we realized that our sales story at retail is really strong. And then as time moved, we then realized that actually our story into on-premise is not necessarily about the story, but it's about the unique taste profile.
Yeah.
So we were able to then start working on what the taste profile looks like. But that took us time to get there. We very much started off with we needed people telling the story. And then as we got confidence that our product was very good and quite unique, that was then when on-premise really turned on. I think, again, just be really focused, be patient, but really know what your brand stands for before you walk out into the market, because that will lead you to the right segment where you can be successful.
That's fantastic. Great advice, because there is obviously people, when they're just starting out, have a concern about will they sell enough, and they decide to go broad. But I think one of the consistent messages that's come through a lot of the successful people that we've had throughout the TDI and obviously through the industry in Australasia is a degree of focus, right? It really is. And hold your nerve and do the things you need to do. and as you say, it comes down to fundamentals. It really is wearing out a shit ton of shoe leather to actually start selling things.
Probably the other advice I'd give is friends and family are amazing, but they don't tell you the truth. So they're a wonderful source of feeling good about what you do.
Encouragement.
And they're your first lot of consumers and buyers. But really, it's not till you get to people who don't know you and don't really care about your feelings who will give you the truth on whether your product's going to work or not. So that's probably one thing we always laugh about is friends and family are amazing to make you feel good, but they're not a true reflection of what the market's going to give you feedback on.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, they can be the cheer squad. They can be encouraging. They can do all those sorts of things and say, we're right behind you. And ultimately you're on the field playing against some 300-pound gorilla. What's your way through? Yeah, exactly. Just before we finish up, and it's been an absolute delight speaking with you, Kyle. It's taken us a little while to get things organised, but I'm so pleased that you're available today and able to catch up. So, interesting thing. Have you seen any, and this is strange asking someone like yourself this really, given the innovations you've already gone through, but have you seen any interesting innovations or products or venues in distilleries that have actually inspired you at all? I think really, as I said before, your bottle does the talking, but is there anything that springs to mind?
Yeah, look, I think there's lots of inspiration around us in the New Zealand industry and amazing stories and unique positions. I was lucky enough to be up in Germany a few weeks ago at Provine, where there were 2 halls of spirits. And it was a real leveler going around looking at what was there. But yeah, there's some amazing innovation happening in the industry with flavor compounds and those, to your point earlier, the elixirs. So looking for high aroma, high flavor compounds coming into spirits. Probably one thing that was starting to come through was a bit of that functional beverage stuff. So how that marries in terms of products that you're distilling with that have kind of functional compounds, because that's really resonating with consumers these days. But it's how do you get something that works through the distillation process? That's probably the tricky part there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think what we're all learning is that consumers' first preference is taste. Taste has to be really good. And I think that's where we're starting to see people really click on to that. So what is it they can bring in that adds to that aroma and that taste experience for the consumer? And you're seeing it with peanut butter whiskey and screwball and all those things where they're bringing in really quite linear flavor compounds where they're going, it's going to be peanut butter whiskey. And you're seeing that take off, and Buzzball products and Fireball. And it's really interesting. That sweetness has now moved more to chili compounds and heat, which tequila do very well naturally, as does mezcal. So you're starting to see younger consumer profiles shift.
It's interesting you say that. I've certainly noticed that trend myself. In fact, it wasn't that long ago. I think it may have been two years ago. I think, the IWSC Gin of the Year was a very spicy gin, and it tended to reflect the changing palate of gin consumers. So it's interesting. There was that old stereotypical thing that, younger people like sweet things, and as they get older, their palates change. But I think it's now a case people are becoming more discerning about what they want to drink and what they want to taste, and the journey those taste experiences take them on. So that's excellent. Last but not least, and I know maybe I can preempt this answer, but anyway. If you're sitting down with your favorite drink and setting, where are you and what are you drinking?
The obvious answer is I'm going to be drinking Strange Nature, but I'm a rum drinker as well, Marcel. I do love a dark and stormy, and a variation of a dark and stormy sitting on the deck looking out over the ocean somewhere. I love being close to the ocean, so that will always be the setting. Rum always takes me there, having spent time at Ray and Nephew and the home of Karuba in Jamaica.
Absolutely.
At Rick's Bar, looking and watching the sunset. There's all those sorts of memories that take me back. But variations of dark and stormy. And the great thing is Strange Nature can actually make one of those with the barrel aged. Cruzan Blackstrap's my rum at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Excellent.
With the Fever Tree ginger beer. The Fever Tree ginger beer is really good. It's got a nice spice to it. So
there's a very dark and very stormy mix right there. Oh, that's fantastic. Kyle, it's been an absolute delight speaking with you today. Thank you so much for your time. Loved your story. We went on a bit of a journey all over the show, which is just absolutely fantastic.
Apologies about that.
But there is no need to apologise at all. I could just sit here, and next time I'll have a dark and stormy with, and just throw a question at you and just sit here and drink that and listen to you all day. So it's been absolutely spectacular. Really appreciate your generosity today, and it's been an absolute delight speaking with you.
Thanks, Marcel. Appreciate the time. It's always lovely to speak to a legend of the industry. So I appreciate you making the time for me more so, having read your book and looked at the industry and gone, wow, it's just got such great people and so much involvement from people who've been in it for a long time, still giving back. Thank you for the time, and look forward to maybe touching base again as we evolve the story further down the track.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews for those listening. Please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.